Well, so let's look at what the stories are on the front and back pages of the newspapers, per the discussions we're about to have. Currently, we have in the studio Theophilus Setechai, Member of Parliament for Ablekuma Central. And thanks for joining me, Theophilus. How are you?
Yeah, thank you.
All right, we'll be also joined by Dr. Nyama, and he's the Member of Parliament for Brekum East in the Bonafri region. And as and when he comes in, he'll help us continue the discussions. But prominently today, there's a story that is getting a lot more grounds, we're told. There's still the concern about the raging issue of the $1 billion, is it dollar Eurobond? And we've had the Minister of Finance come out to state what the monies or the allocations have been used for, etc. But it was still the minority in Parliament not convinced that whether the money is still with the Bank of Ghana or still being used by the Bank of Ghana because of government exceeding the threshold of borrowing from the bank.
In Parliament, we have, first of all, let me say good morning to our cherished viewers. And to say that Parliament has rules, procedures on how to get information. And I believe that if government has gone out to contract a loan to facilitate development, government went into the market with certain projects in mind. And after the money has been secured, it is up to government to ensure that the intended purpose, why it went out for that particular loan, will be used for that intended purpose. And as members of Parliament or as a minority group in Parliament, there are ways that we can use to actually get to the bottom of whether the resources that has been gotten are being used for the intended purposes. But I do understand where the MPP minority is coming from, because I quite remember when they went in for their Eurobond at that time. They went in for that particular money to do some infrastructural projects that will enhance our economic development. But looking at the situation around that period, where they couldn't even pay the salaries of workers, you know, the money was used in paying for the emoluments of public sector workers. And that, in a long way, defeated the purpose of going to acquire that particular loan.
So you think what they're just doing equalization?
No, so maybe judging from how they handled that particular money, the thinking is that the NDC government is also going to use the money to pay salaries. No, that is why we always say that despite the challenges that we face as a country, the economy is very resilient. Because for the past years that we are facing this challenge, government has never used monies intended for other purposes for the payment of salaries. At least by the end of every month, resources are made available to pay public sector workers. And in Parliament, I quite remember our leader, that is Honorable Gbagbe, did refer to the MPP in their days when the economy was not in good shape. It went to the extent that even Parliament was asked to use its resources for investment and other things to pay members of Parliament. That shows you the level of deterioration at that particular period. But today, as I talk to you, it is not like that with the NDC government. At the end of the month, salaries of workers are paid from the consolidated fund. So it shows you that we have an economy that is very resilient, only that there are challenges that we need to fix, and that is what we are looking at. So maybe they are talking from experience that they have had when they were in government, and so therefore they think government is not going to use the resources to the benefit of the people, the intended purpose. But let me assure the whole people of this country that we are a government that is very responsible. We believe that the way forward is to develop infrastructure. And the intended purpose of the Eurobond will be used. So if members feel strongly that there's something fishy, you just file, how do you call it, an urgent question, and when opportunity is given, the man will just come.
Well, we do understand that, but beyond the whole activity of whatever questions are supposed to be raised in Parliament is also the need for the public to get to know what really is happening. Because indeed, the members of Parliament, whether they're in the minority or not, are representing a chunk or some level of a section of Ghanaians in many respects.
They are representing the people of Ghana, even not a section. Because we are the mouthpiece of the people.
Yes.
So we are representing the, So, no, for me, there are several channels that we can use as members of Parliament. This is not about we coming to the media to put in false allegations. No, there are so many ways. And I don't think this is something secretive that...
Well, they've brought statement of accounts of the Bank of Ghana.
Exactly.
And these are public documents currently, because these have been circulated to various media houses. That seems to purport or give it an indication that indeed, if you look at the balance brought forward on those accounts, you get to see that, well, the money deposited at the end of the day and the balance brought forward, you do the balancing and you see that it doesn't tally.
No, but the question is...
And tends also to agree with whatever they are raising in terms of those concerns.
Well, for me, the minister is in Parliament. He's in charge. He normally comes to the House. And definitely, government doesn't operate based on, let's say, hiding information. No, we have a very transparent government. And definitely, whatever the intended purpose of the money is to, will be made bare. We just, the media is also following the story. So definitely we'll get to know whatever the intended purpose of the money is being used for.
There were a section of your supporters in the Volta region who undertook some level of picketing or demonstration on Thursday. You're very much familiar with the story?
I just said it this morning.
This morning?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you make of it? They're expressing dissatisfaction with the way things are going, particularly with party leadership in the region especially. And they want the president even to intervene in many respects.
Well, when it comes to party leadership, His Excellency the President is not the one who goes to elect. Well,
as far as they go as when it comes appealing to the president to intervene, it means that
I believe that if the issue is about a party issue, then we have our national executives, we have the regional. If it is about the regional executives, then they have to inform the next in command, which is the national executive. But you see, when it comes to party elections, it is we, the constituents within the region, we decide who should lead us. So at the end of the day, after we've taken that decision, then it means it is a collective responsibility, because you are putting people in place that you can trust, that you believe will handle the affairs of the party to the satisfaction of the party supporters, who will ensure that issues concerning regional economic development are also looked through. Issues concerning members' welfare and so on and so forth are also looked into. So it is based on some of these things, party organization, how to ensure that elections are won. We consider all these factors before we go for elections. So when you go for elections and you don't go to elect people based on those factors, definitely you will be disappointed, because you didn't consider those factors before going to vote. But if you had considered all those factors before going to elect your leaders, then you are sure that you are electing a leader that you think will handle the affairs of the party very well. You are electing a leader that will ensure that development will reach your doorsteps. But most of the times, we Ghanaians, when it comes to voting, there are so many factors that we consider that, for me, are not the things that we need to consider.
Now, if you go by what you're saying, do you think that all these disaffection, disenchantment, etc., oozing from the rank and file of your party, particularly based on the dissatisfaction they have with the leadership, would also imply that you need to perhaps expand the electoral college base of the party. So you have a lot more representation of the grassroots people in making a say as to who becomes their leader.
That is very fantastic.
Makes it more participatory.
Because the essence of democracy should be participatory.
Yes.
Now, when you consider all the political parties, sometimes as a result of a resource constraint, certain things are done to even curtail that level of participation. But if you look at currently what is happening in almost all the political parties, the frontiers are being enlarged in terms of opening up for more grassroots supporters to have a say in the party. But you see, once you are being given that opportunity, you also have a responsibility. Because one, our political parties needs to survive. And political parties are not business entities. Political parties are voluntary organizations. And when you have voluntary organizations, the only way those organizations will be able to stand up to the test is where members contribute their quota to support the organization that they've joined. So once the frontiers are being opened for the grassroots to have access to determine who should lead the party at the presidential level, who should lead the party at the constituency level, at the national level, so that you will not have a situation where a few people will go out to decide who should lead.
And currently that's what happens.
Yeah, and for me, I think the current trend will be the best for all political parties. But that will also depend on those who are coming in, whether they are ready to also contribute towards the sustainability of the party. Because once the frontiers have been opened, it means the party needs huge resources to embark upon any activity that it needs to. And that will also mean that those who are now part of it should also be ready to contribute towards the sustainability of the party.
Do you think that by the current trend at which the various parties, and particularly the two main parties, are going in trying to undertake reforms, and we're told in your party you're undertaking biometric registration of people, and ultimately you would want everybody to be digitally recognized or put in a certain database. Do you think that with the current spate of the reforms that the parties are undertaking, by the next election period, not necessarily 2016, but perhaps after 2016, within those sections where you have to do your elections for the various regional, electoral area, constituency elections, you have the electoral college expanded for the NDC as well?
Yeah, currently we've missed that opportunity for
that timeline
for the branch elections, the constituency elections, and the regional elections,
and even the national executive election, because you still haven't expanded. It needs to. It's a constitutional process.
Yeah, and what we are doing now even has not been approved yet. This is just an idea that we want to embark upon.
How is it like?
But
what you're doing now is it's in what form?
For now, I would say it is at the storming stage, where the ideas are now being formulated. I believe that when we get to our national Congress, we are going to adopt it into, how do you call it, a law, so that there will be that legal backing to enable us now implement that. So maybe after the Congress, maybe that particular process will be used maybe during the parliamentary elections, depending on how fast we fast-track these processes. Then maybe we can use it at the parliamentary level and then the presidential level, which will be very good for all of us. Because democracy should be participatory and every citizen should be allowed. Equally, the political parties should also create the room for the ordinary person within the party to also have a say, so that we don't have a situation where people with influence, people with money dictate to political parties. once he or she has the money, he can control party supporters. No. We want a situation where we will look at the qualities of the person who wants to offer his or himself for a political position. We want to look at the expertise of the person, you know, all the ingredients that will make that person beneficial to the party and the nation. Because it's the political party that forms government. And if the human resource is not up to tax, the people will suffer. So I think it is a very good process that all the political parties need to embark upon to open up our frontiers in terms of our democratic governance.
Okay, so let's see how it goes as far as we're concerned. We have a section of the minority, some personalities. We have Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, Antonio Kotuose, and Samuel Atachia. They've challenged a decision by the GNPC to go for a $700 million loan, and the case was brought against the GNPC in courts. Now, lawyer for the plaintiff, Asante Bedeto, is asking the judge to direct the GNPC to suspend the current transaction relating to the procurement of the loan until at least the hearing of the substantive case. But we've had the lawyer for the respondent also saying that will not be possible, etc. And it's still the raging issue about whether the GNPC has the legitimacy to go in for a loan without parliamentary approval. They are also basing their argument on certain legal processes or legislation that they believe supports what they are doing. And as legislators, we also have the right to demand accountability to ensure that the public purse is protected. I think the three members have taken the right decision to go to court to seek interpretation. I believe that they are doing so because maybe they also see that the law is something that is not straightforward. Because I believe that if it is a straightforward thing, it will not even have come to that level. So once they've taken the issue to court, it means there's something within the law that needs interpretation. And it is the Supreme Court that can only do interpretation when it comes to issues bordering on our Constitution. So the members are doing what is right. We all need to support them. GNPC also has the right to defend its cause. At the end of the day, it is about the protection of the public purse. Because if today GNPC is to go in for a loan and that particular resource is misapplied, it is the two of us who are going to suffer for the mismanagement. You mean a taxpayer? Exactly. So there's the need for us to protect the public purse. And we need to commend our three members for taking that bold decision. Well, I haven't heard somebody boldly from the majority come out in support specifically of the actions of not necessarily only the three, but the concern they had that the MPP minority had raised early on in Parliament. All of you are legislators, but what's your own observation about if we have a public corporation? And currently we know that we have a law that is regulating the establishment of the GNPC and how it operates. According to the current law, they're supposed to get approval from the Finance Ministry. And of course, the Finance Ministry gets its final approval from Parliament. So it's not a dicey issue. For many people, it's a straightforward issue. But particularly when we know that there's a precedent where loans were taken by the GNPC at the turn of the current millennium. And then we had concerns being raised, issues came up, and debts had to be paid. Even a state asset had to even to be sold. Do you get me? So what's your own observation about all this? Yeah, in fact, for my candid opinion. Your neutral position. Yeah. It will be very prudent for us to ensure that when it comes to issues involving going for loans and so on and so forth. By public corporations? Yes, we need parliamentary approval to be on the safer side. Why?
There are several agreements that have come through the House that didn't go through the right processes, and at the end of the day, it even failed to materialize. Because if I'm an organization outside and I want to give a country loan, and there's disagreement even in Parliament, you know, Parliament is an institution that represents the entirety of the country, the people. So when there's disagreement, the person bringing in the resources also has a little bit of, how do you call it, fear as to whether the investment that he or she is bringing in at the end of the day will be worth it. So for me, I can cite examples. If you come to my committee, that's the Roads and Transport Committee, there are some agencies that do not take their funding or whatever their resources from the consolidated fund, but they are all under the Ministry of Transport. Let's take Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. You see, they are not government subvented.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to issues of contracts, sourcing for loans, they come to the House to seek parliamentary approval, because it is whatever loans or resources that they are going to take, they are taking it on behalf of the people of Ghana. So they come to us. But you see, the GNPC issue, they have a peculiar case where they believe that there's a law that is protecting whatever they want to do. And they believe that by going through that channel, they've done the right thing. That is the more reason why our colleagues in Parliament also feels that no, let us go to court and then test that law. So after going through the processes in the court, if at the end of the day it is agreed that they've used the right channel to secure the loan, then so be it. But if the Supreme Court also comes out to say that no, go for parliamentary approval, then that is it. Because the law is not very clear on the processes that they are using. And each and everyone will interpret the law in a different way. So it is the Supreme Court that will finally tell us that this is what we should do and this is how we should do it. And that becomes the norm.
Okay, as far as we're concerned, with all that you have reiterated, do you think that the GNPC, because of the way its regulation has been structured, also has some level of legitimacy by the way it's arguing its case?
Yes, that's why I'm saying that the law is such that it is also giving them the leeway. That is why they went to the Finance Ministry, because the law gives them the opportunity to seek approval from the Finance Minister. And that they followed. Okay? So once they have done that, for them, they followed the due process. But as you rightly said, the Finance Minister also derives his authority from the House. So this is something for our learned friends to argue and then make a definite statement on it. So whatever comes out, then that is what will be the guidance.
So the best solution was that we went to court.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you, as members of Parliament, whether you are in the majority or minority, are taking positions, and then stated clearly the concerns that you had, like you're expressing currently, and I haven't heard anybody from the majority express such concern. Well, and I feel it's a very objective concern. Wouldn't it have been better and preempted, perhaps even going to court and set some level of precedence before Parliament?
Those who are in court are also members of Parliament. Whether they are coming from the majority side or minority side, they are also members of Parliament. And once the issue is in court, they are in court on behalf of the people of the country to ensure that our resources are used or the mandate of the people are sought before resources are taken from other institutions to do things on behalf of the country. So once they are coming from the minority side, for me, it is not a problem because they are also members of parliament. They represent the interests of the people of this country. So we only need to support them, for them to go through the process and then come out with the issues at stake. At the end of the day, you quite remember the issue of the Atuabo gas project, the issue of the Atuabo infrastructure development in terms of the free port. I'm a member of the transport committee. Those of us on the transport, there was disagreement as to whether we had the right to cede some powers to the new company coming to develop the new port, preventing other institutions from going ahead to
also undertake development.
Exactly. And some of our members felt no, that shouldn't be the case.
That's taking a right of
exactly. But you know,
a statutory public operation away.
But we also, some of us also argue that this is an issue that was brought before the House, deliberated on it.
You mean the plenary?
Parliament, yes. And then Parliament passed the agreement, which means the people of this country have accepted that that should be. But you see, some of our members...
Well, we'll debate that, because when you say that it appears before the plenary or committee of... You call it the committee of the whole?
No,
that's the plenary.
Yeah.
Okay. And you all argue you approve. We're always having the majority having its way, and the majority rarely issue some level of dissent as far as in their voice, in terms of whatever disagreement they may have with any agreement or issue before the House. We'll be having into the discussions, and Dr. Kwabena Nyama is a member of Parliament for Brekumi, so he'll be joining us and helping us also with the discussions. We're taking a break in the meantime, though. When we come back, we'll be admitting him into the discussions.